Ms Kurland is Ari Douglas's attorney, also a member of the Liberty Park Working Group, which supports Occupy Wall Street legally. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Have you had a chance to speak with your client?
I have not. I've been trying all day. He's been incarcerated for over 12 hours, and I have not been able to speak with him.
Do you have any idea the extent of his injuries?
I know that he was forced, he had to go to a hospital to get emergent services. He had lacerations on his face. You saw the photos. He was bloodied all over his face.
And the police theory on this is he threw himself onto the ground and then purposely stuck his feet under a moving motorcycle, or moped is probably a closer description, a moving vehicle. He purposely put his feet, one or both of them, under this thing in order to what?
That is a good question. Well, let's start with what we do know.
Yeah.
Ari Douglas was a National Lawyers Guild New York City chapter legal observer. He was standing with a number of other professional photographers and journalists. It's important to note he was not part of the protest. He was there in an official capacity to legally observe. He was run into by a motor vehicle, as you described, which unfortunately is one of the tactics NYPD uses to affect crowd control, and was clearly struck by the vehicle. And then instead of being attended to or the police officer helping him, it seems, as I watched the various videos, the police officer backed onto Mr. Douglas, pinning him under the motor vehicle, and then, again, rather than helping him, dismounted that vehicle, walked away from it, and left him trapped under that vehicle. He was finally able to dislodge from the vehicle, at which point the police officers jumped on top of him and proceeded to injure him so seriously that he had to be rushed to an emergency room. That is not what police officers should be doing in that type of situation.
Apart from the idea that everybody's made so far in the show, that it's probably a really bad idea to be using not just mounted police on horseback are dangerous enough. You put a horse into the equation. You put some sort of combustion engine into it, you're going to get combustion. Apart from that, if your client is going to be an attorney and he actually did what they're suggesting, wouldn't that have ramifications for his career?
Well, so let's accept the premise that a trained National Lawyers Guild legal observer found it prudent to, I guess, throw himself under a moving motor vehicle and then, I don't know, pretend to have injured himself, although that's not what I see when I look at the video footage. I see someone clearly in distress, and if you look and listen to the audio, you hear people around him also distressed over seeing him in distress. But let's assume, for argument purposes, that that's the case. That does not justify bloodying him and injuring him so severely that he requires emergency services. The police are supposed to be here to protect us, and I think it draws an interesting parallel to what our clients are fighting for at Zuccotti Park and Liberty Park for this kind of oversight and balance. And, you know, the NYPD is there to protect and serve the public in situations like getting run over by motor vehicles. That's when the police step in to protect you.
Or let's just step it one step back. Let's say he's there and he believes he's about to be run over by the vehicle. This is not a lightweight. He's not being hit by a bicycle here going 0 miles an hour. Even if he's just panicking and just bawling like a child there, some attention needs to be paid to him at some point. All right, well, we probably exhausted the absurdity of this. Let me ask you, you mentioned that you're part of this legal team representing the entire movement. How is this going to resolve? Because the thing that seems to have gotten ignored in this entire equation is the announcement today was the cleaning has been postponed. It is not. There's not going to be a cleaning. Have a nice time. Merry Christmas. How is this going to be resolved? Is there going to be a negotiation, or how do you think this is going to turn out? Do you know?
That's a really good point. It's unfortunate that we're seeing such serious problems with excessive force in the NYPD, and that overshadowed. I think all of us watched that video over and over today, and I think we're all sitting here this evening saying, you know, I'm not sure that the police have learned their lesson post the Republican National Convention and post 9/11. In terms of handling protesters and dealing with public space. But I think that all unfortunately overshadowed the fact that there was a victory today. The police did not go into Zuccotti Park and shut it down, and that is a good thing, and we're delighted by that. But at the same time, we're not out of the forest. We're not over that. And it's great that the Brookfield folks have put out a memorandum saying that they want to work with us, but we have heard nothing concretely in terms of any type of opportunities to sit down or to clearly negotiate. So that's something that we're looking for.
Is there any suspicion that what happened this morning was a ruse just to get witnesses out of the way, that the city will swing by at some point at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, oh, by the way, the owners have changed their mind again, get out?
Right. I mean, there were a number of tense moments. To say that it was a victory today is not to say that we didn't at different points worry that all sorts of things were going to happen. But I think that that's exactly right. I mean, it seemed very much that it was a pretext to basically shut down and stop folks from demonstrating and being in the space, constitutionally protected use of the space, and to be there. So, you know, and I think you played earlier Mayor Bloomberg's statement, which is basically saying, well, you know, we're going to negotiate, or if they don't negotiate, then basically we're just going to do the same thing. So, you know, it's great, again, that they've put out there that they want to do that, but now they need to come to the table. You know, we're attorneys. I'm just one of the attorneys representing these arrestees. We have a whole National Lawyers Guild here working around the clock to do this, and we need to hear from the folks at Brookfield to actually sit down and come up with some concrete solutions.
Otherwise, the next confrontation gets 1,000 times the publicity that this one did, which also would seem to be, at some point, going to occur to the police in the city of New York, although clearly it has not. Ms Kurland, the attorney for the injured protester and one of the attorneys representing Occupy Wall Street, great, thanks for coming in, and our best to your client.